That's my job, provide that access.
Well, we appreciate you coming along. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And don't forget to ask about the poodle skirt.
That's right.
The greater Bemidji area that'll guide our development into the future.
Members, county commissioners, they're appointed by their respective bodies.
Honey, or it can be local, you and I creating a business that then we take to a global perspective.
If you have a question, call and ask, we'll help you.
Nobody knows about it, and it's
Well, the word's out now. The word's out now.
Your entire operation, how to bring people in. So let's get involved. Economic development is one of the most important tasks we have.
It is. It is.
It's great to hear about.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure, Louis.
Good evening, I'm Lou Crenshaw, and it's 6:30 on Wednesday night, and so once again, thanks to Upstream TV, we're back with Inside Bemidji. And as you know, this is where we showcase the people and the organizations who are working to make our community an even better place. So thanks for joining us, and I'm happy to be here tonight with Dave Hengel, the Executive Director of Greater Bemidji. Dave,
Good to be
thanks
here.
for coming.
Finally.
Finally, that's right. We tried to do this last year, but he's a busy man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your patience.
And of course, you guys know who Greater Bemidji is. They used to be the Joint Economic Development Commission, and these are the folks that have the mission of working on the economic development that makes our community a success and a better place to live.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And we're going to talk about that, and I hope you stay with us. But first, let's talk about you, Dave. Are you originally from Bemidji?
I'm not. I'm actually originally from St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Yeah, that's
Not too far away, a couple hours south. And I was back in a time when St. Cloud felt more like Bemidji is today than St. Cloud is today.
A little smaller then?
It's a little smaller than, certainly
you're
a
not
smaller
that
town.
old, but it is a lot bigger.
I'm older than you think.
Well, we're glad to have you here and up from St. Cloud. How did that happen? How'd you make your way up from St. Cloud north?
You know, I was in college in St. Cloud, and my college buddies and I used to come travel and spend a week at a resort every summer. And my junior year, I recall staying at a resort in Lake George, Minnesota, just 15 miles south of here.
Okay.
Or 20 miles south of here. And I said to my buddy, I'm going to live in this area someday. And sure enough, I got a job offer from the Headwaters Regional Development Commission, and fooled them enough that they hired me. And the rest is a bit history. And I've been in this area, and I consider it as my home.
Well, that's quite a background in development. How long ago was that?
That was 27 years ago.
All right. And so you've been in Bemidji 27, well, you qualify almost as a...
Almost.
I probably never will.
Someday
You gotta be a
I'll get
couple
there.
of generations,
Yeah.
I think.
Someday we'll both graduate to being residents, right?
And how about your family? You got a family here?
I do. I've got a beautiful wife. Her name's Kelly, and I've got 7 children, 3 of my own and 4 of hers, and so we're the Brady Bunch, if you will. And it's gone well, and I'm super blessed.
Good for you. How long have you been married?
I've been married this will be our 4th year.
Okay. And you met
We met at church in St. Philip's in Bemidji here.
here in Bemidji?
We were, yeah. We both ran we're part of a youth ministry effort at St. Philip's, working with teenagers, and got to know each other well. And she's my best friend. So
That's great. I like to say that about my wife too. She's my best friend, and that makes it really good.
it does.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Well, we're glad to have you here in Bemidji. 26 years. You know a lot more about it than I do. And how long have you been with the Greater Bemidji?
I moved over to the Greater Bemidji a year and a half ago. So just not quite a year and a half ago, January of 2012.
And you stayed with the HRDC up until then?
I did. I started as an economic development planner with the HRDC, and then moved to an economic development director, and then finally it was a director of leadership development, where I did not just economic development but also leadership training and what we called stewardship, the Center for Community Stewardship out of the HRDC.
Good organization.
It's
We
a
had
great
Tim
organization.
Flathers in here talking about it last year, and maybe he'll come back and tell us even more.
Yeah, it's a great organization. I think the impact that organization's made over the last 20 years is pretty amazing, and I hope folks someday learn about that.
Well, let's talk about your organization. I was on your webpage, and Greater Bemidji has a very nice webpage. I encourage you guys to look at it. You'll learn a lot about our community, at least I did, and its benefits. And I was surprised, 24 years of operation.
Yeah, it's been around for 24 years. Initially as the Joint Economic Development Commission, it was created by many community leaders that decided it was time to create an economic development organization to drive development. At the time it was called Joint because it was primarily led by county and city contributions, and so they called it the Joint Economic Development Commission. Gradually that has changed, and now we have about 51 different organizations and businesses that contribute to the organization. So we thought that in part, a good reason for the change in name was in fact to better describe who we are, but also to better describe the reach we have. We aren't an organization that's simply focused on the city of Bemidji.
Okay.
This is an organization that, if you look at economic development, all economic development is regional. And that's why
your webpage points that out. You
Right.
have a lot of statistics in there, which I can't remember, but I'm sure you can. Like
I do.
there's 40,000
Yeah.
people. Help me with that one.
Yeah, in
And
fact,
there's 100 and something thousand.
Yeah, it was
what
fun.
are those again?
I was actually, it's kind of fun. I was, when I was with the HRDC, one of the last things I did was lead the strategic planning effort that created Greater Bemidji, or the change in Greater Bemidji's strategic agenda.
Okay.
And I quizzed the board, which is made up of community leaders throughout the area, about some of the demographics of the Bemidji area, and it surprised some people. For example, within a 50-mile radius of Bemidji is now 108,000 people, which is a substantial number of people.
And 50 miles, we got pretty good roads. They can be here
Oh, absolutely.
less
People-
than an hour.
Absolutely, people will drive here 50
So
miles.
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000 people. We're no longer a small town, and I would debate with folks is that it's no longer a question whether we're a regional center. It's what type of regional center we choose to become. And
That's the way I feel as well. Because we have all of those key, the airport,
Yep.
the health center, the university. We have our historic downtown, whatever. But those amenities, those benefits for people, the shopping, they really don't exist in the same way in that 50-mile radius.
No, that's right. And I think the people who, there's always been a debate in town about whether folks support being a regional center or not, or how many are there folks who simply don't want to continue to grow. I don't see it that way. And I recall doing a survey with Bemidji Leads several years ago, it must have been 5 years ago or so. We did a perception survey of the community, and we asked them, to what extent do you agree with the statement Bemidji should strive to be the regional center of northern Minnesota? And 75% of folks agreed to that statement. But in addition to that, though, 75% of folks were concerned about the growth's impact on quality of life. 75% were concerned about the growth's impact on community aesthetics. 75% were concerned about the growth's impact on safety. And so my read on that is not a question, and I think the debate needs to change. It's not a question of do people support growth or prosperity. It's about what are we losing as that happens.
Yeah.
And making
how can we
sure-
maintain?
That's right.
And then the things you listed, of course, are vital. That's why all those are why we live here.
That's exactly right. We don't want to lose the things we love about this area. And
Yeah, well said.
And so the target is can we, have balance that regional center amenities with the small town beauty and character that we've traditionally had here.
This is, it fits together. I had Mayana Rice here
Oh, yeah.
with all of her charts, and as you know, she's leading our
Yes.
planning administrator for the Greater Bemidji, different greater here, but anyway, she's leading this strategic plan.
Yep.
And I think what you just captured is the heart and soul of that plan. How do we manage our development?
Right.
How do we make plans for our future, recognizing that we're already a regional center,
Right.
but we manage this continued growth in a way that we preserve those things that are really important to us.
Absolutely. And we need to acknowledge it's in our control to do that. I mean, I think in the past, it's historically with economic development is if you weren't by a major regional center, if you weren't on a 4-lane highway, if you weren't next to the best of raw materials, you were likely to struggle to be successful economically. But I think if you look at some of the areas and regions that are successful today, it has nothing to do with any of that. You can build a successful community now.
Well, I'm
And-
sure, and and the reason I say I'm sure is what I mean is I'm sure it's changing.
Absolutely.
Because this new age of electronics and connectiveness and
Absolutely.
instant information
Yep.
and the speed of light, you don't necessarily, you could be there without being there.
That's exactly right, and what that means is both great opportunity for towns and communities like Bemidji, but also pretty big threats. I mean, it's the key question now is if a person can locate their family or their business anywhere, and that's almost true, why here? And that's it gets to a conversation about what sets you apart, what is your competitive advantage against some other regional centers.
Yeah, and I definitely think we want to get into that conversation
Sure.
because you have, how many towns of Bemidji and larger other in North America, that's how many competitors you've got. Because
There's
there's
a
a
bunch.
guy like you in every town.
Absolutely.
Trying to work on exactly the same
That's
puzzle,
right.
right?
That's exactly right. And so the effective economic development organizations are the ones that are identifying what are those things that set you apart,
Yes.
that provide you advantage
What
compared
the
to other
marketers
communities.
call differentiators.
Absolutely.
How
And
do you
that's-
differentiate
How
yourself?
do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
Now, and that's a very, very difficult question, but a really important question for the Bemidji region to continue to have.
Let's come back to that one.
Sure.
I would still want to talk about your organization.
Okay.
Okay, you said 50-something companies? That was pretty interesting to me. What's
Yeah.
that like?
51 companies as
Yeah.
investors is great. I mean, it tells you how important it is how everybody sees how important it is to
So
grow
you've
the
got
economy.
51 companies that are giving you direct financial help.
Donations to the company.
Donations.
We are a
Right.
501c3 charitable company,
Okay.
and so businesses, organizations, city and county all make contributions to my organization on an annual basis, equivalent to about $200,000 a year.
And that, to me, paraphrased, means that the entire business community as well as the governments understand how vital
Absolutely.
this is to our future.
I agree.
Because
with
if we
that.
don't have jobs and if we don't have companies and if we don't have work, we don't have much of a community.
That's right. It's very difficult.
We just got to do it the right way.
We
right?
got to do it the right way, and I don't think you can have a healthy community without a healthy economy.
No, I just can't imagine it.
Right.
I can't imagine
Right.
it. There's nothing like a job to make everybody feel
That's right.
better.
Exactly right.
Got one more question on your
Sure.
organization. A 23-member board of directors.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing.
It's
How's that work?
It's actually 24 members now, but
Okay.
the website must be off by one perhaps. But we just added a new board member. It's an aircraft carrier. It's a big group, and so the key with any organization that I've dealt with is that the key is alignment. If you can all agree on, what the target is, then a lot of the issues and side problems or concerns tend to go away because you're all moving in the same direction. And so it's really important for when you think about strategic planning or you think about action planning for the organization. It was really important for my organization. Do we agree on where we're headed?
Yes.
And do we agree on the initiatives that will get us there?
I guess that's why I asked the question, because it just seemed to me that unless you've got 23 people to agree on the strategy
Right.
and understand the strategic initiatives, they're never going to agree on anything.
That's right.
Because no 23 humans are going to
Yeah.
agree on
and,
that.
and I know, Lou, you've been in
Yeah.
organizations enough. It's really more about, culture is more important than even strategy. I mean, we have folks that all agree on, if you will, the culture of the organization, that we're passionate, we're energetic, we're working hard, we're going to have fun while we do it. We may disagree, but we're going to act like a team and we're going to move forward together. And I've got an truly outstanding group of board of directors that really make
Oh,
my
that's great.
job
That's great.
exciting. When I need something, they're always there for me.
Yeah, I guess my concern was back to your conversation of, there are people who are not so sure we ought to be a regional center.
Right.
And so if you got 23 people, probably got a group that aren't so sure, and you got a group that's ready to leverage that for
Yeah.
all it's worth. I mean, I'm talking a spectrum.
Yeah,
Because you
absolutely.
always got that many people, you got a
Sure,
spectrum of.
sure. Yeah, well, and in part, that's good. I mean, in a sense that you do have the
Good point.
diversity,
Well
you do
said.
have the
Well
ability, and I think there are different segments of the community that we need to listen to. If it were all about Dave Hengel's vision, we'd probably be in big trouble.
I like that, and I'm glad you said it that way, because then now it
Sure.
makes it sound as it probably is an asset to you.
It's an absolute asset to
Great.
me, but
I just,
although not always easy.
Okay.
Not always easy.
well, let's segue over because we got so much to talk about and what you guys do, and you know, this is. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I'm an old development guy myself. Let's start talking about the kind of activities you do.
Sure.
Well, let's pick one. I guess we can say around your mission statement, when you talk about developing economic incentives.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that all about? You're talking about helping somebody with the cost of relocating and developing their
Well,
business?
let me do this. I'll frame you kind of the 4 focus areas, and
Good.
that's
Let's
one
go
of them.
through all of them.
And,
in any order.
Sure,
you want
and
to.
the only
Let's
reason I
talk
want
about
to throw
those
that out
focus
there
areas.
is because I think when folks think about economic development, they immediately go to what you just threw out. Which
Yeah,
is
right.
economic incentives. I mean, whatever, tax breaks and corporate welfare and all these things, when in fact that's really just a small part.
Good.
And historically, it used to be a major part, when in fact it's simply not enough anymore. I mean, you can no longer be the cheapest place. Bemidji will never have the cheapest labor and the cheapest land and the cheapest natural resources in the world anymore. It's just simply not the case. And so our board acknowledged that, and so we've got additional focus areas that are what I would consider fairly non-traditional for an economic development organization. The importance of growing, attracting, and retaining talent is a focus area for us.
Okay. Let's repeat that.
Sure.
Growing, attracting, and retaining talent.
Absolutely.
So now you're talking about the quality side of the
Absolutely.
incentives, and
Very
that's
much so.
that's really an important one. So now you're talking about the quality side of what we have to offer.
Absolutely. That's a key focus
And
area.
you're talking about talent. Go ahead.
Talent, absolutely talent. The second one is we're going to be involved in encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation in our community, and we've got some strategies that'll do that. And then the other two, of course, are very traditional roles for economic development, are things like the incentive package, as you talked about. I like to call it the toolkit, if you will,
Okay.
or the toolbox. And then secondly, a role of marketing. Someone's got to market the community. We haven't been particularly effective at it historically, and I think that's become an increasing focus for us.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to your question about incentives, what's that include? Well, you know, like it or not, I mean, we're in competition with other regions,
And I think people understand that, and we have to do those. I guess my question, Dave, was how do you go about getting agreement around those? That was I'm thinking here now, you got the county, you got 51 businesses. It's hard to bring in a business without competing with one of those businesses.
Yeah.
That's certainly an issue. So how do you get this whole playing field to agree around incentives?
Now, what's interesting is that I think most of the incentives we deal with in the state of Minnesota in particular are the same.
Okay.
And so it's very difficult to differentiate yourself from Alexandria or Fergus Falls or East Grand Forks or Duluth
That's
or
just,
St. Cloud,
what do
because
you call it? That's just the ante now.
that's right, because we all have the same access to the same programs,
Okay.
and quite honestly, everybody's aggressive, and so that's no longer a significant thing. There are, of course, the more local you get, the more decisions that need to be made. Does the city council choose to use for example, a tax increment financing? Or tax abatement type of things. Those are intriguing questions that, depending on the project, the council may say yes or the council may say no to.
And so then, understanding what you said, this tends to be a case by case depending on how the value of this
Absolutely.
opportunity is judged.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I understand, and that's what I wanted to bring out.
Sure.
Okay, you talked about retaining talent. How are we going to do that?
It's hard.
Somebody talked about in the newspaper article. This is really timely, by the way. We're going to get here in a little bit on the Minnesota Innovation
Yeah.
Institute. Dave was just up there with a team talking to the county government.
County board,
was
yep.
that yesterday? Right?
Yesterday, yep.
Yesterday. So we're going to get back and talk about that. But here's a fellow. I don't know Jim Russ of Team Industries, but he said, my passion is I've got 4 kids and they've all left the region. So it's very simple to have some of our kids to be able to have good paying jobs right here in the region.
Absolutely. You know, I would say that, and Jim's not alone. I mean,
Jim's not alone.
Jim's
We
not
hear
alone.
that. We all
constantly hear it.
How
Not just
do we-
about people trying to keep kids here, which is the retaining your talent thing, but also attracting talent. was recently at an international economic development conference in Phoenix, and the workshops were all focused on talent. It wasn't about how do you attract businesses anymore. It was about
Right.
how do you attract the talent, because quite honestly, that's the driver to where businesses are choosing to locate right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the winner in the game of economic development right now is the community that can create and retain their talent and grow their talent.
Okay.
And so that's
So
why
once again, as you said earlier,
Yep.
it's the quality side
Absolutely.
of the attractiveness that's becoming the driver in this
Absolutely.
modern age.
And you would think Bemidji is particularly positioned for that. Not very many communities our size have Bemidji State University, Northwest Technical College, 3 tribal colleges, Oak Hills Christian College, a great school district, 3 charter schools. You name it, we have the gamut.
That's an impressive list.
Absolutely, it's a wonderful list and a real asset, and it's going to be a fantastic asset when we start leveraging that to the extent we can to create the talent that companies are looking for today.
And we're going to come back to that on the Minnesota
Yeah, absolutely.
Innovation Institute.
We are,
Because we're
because
definitely going to talk about it, so don't leave. But you said marketing. I
Yes.
don't know marketing, guys, so we got to talk about
Yeah.
marketing. You know, some of the things you talked about and said we don't want to lose.
Yeah.
If we're going to be a regional center, if we're going to do growth, and we're going to bring in more jobs, which means more people around here and buildings and
That's right.
factories and on. And if we want jobs, we got to have that. And hopefully we'll manage it. But the list you had about safety, quality of life, clean air, clean water,
Mhm.
this small town, lovely small town
That's
feel
right.
we have. I didn't hit them all, but
Downtown.
the downtown. Those, it seems to me, are also our benefits.
Absolutely.
In other words, it's so important to retain them, not just because that's why we live here, but because that's what makes us attractive for the kind of growth we want to manage
Absolutely.
and
It's-
have.
Yeah, you know, and I've had conversations with folks before about, do you try and create amenities that attract people to town, or do you try and create amenities that people in town want? And the funny part of it is there's no difference. That what we want as community members of the Bemidji region are the same thing that people are looking for, that are looking for a location to
Yeah.
live,
We
raise
live
their
here.
family.
We live here because we love these things.
Absolutely.
And they just don't know about them well
That's
enough.
right, that's right, and that's absolutely true. We've had major issues regarding that. I give tours to companies and to developers and to people, whether it's doctors that Sanford's trying to attract, or new profs or execs throughout the region, and I'll give tours, and I'll give them a tour of, I'll invariably take them to the airport, and I'll take them to the new school at the high school, and I'll take them to
Oh, yeah.
BSU
Yeah, the new high school.
Sanford Health, and we'll end up in, like I mentioned to you, we'll end up in the club seat at the event center, at the Sanford Center, and invariably they will look at me and say, "This is not the town we expected."
And I hope that's positive.
I think it is positive, and
I hope they
like
made
I
it
said,
positive.
I think they did, and
Yeah.
in fact, it's we've obviously exceeded expectations, but
Good.
immediately you feel good about that
Yep.
as a community
Yep.
member. But the fact is, as an economic developer, I got to step back and say, okay, how many folks have this misguided or misunderstood vision of what Bemidji really
Or just
is?
uninformed.
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 And whose fault is that? I
Well,
mean,
you
that's
can't
my
inform
respons-
everybody.
And that
You
again
gotta
is the
target
market.
who
You do
you're
have to target.
informing, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're doing that too.
Well, and
I want to
targeting-
back up. I
Sure.
was waffling away about these benefits.
Sure.
And that, but you've got a better list, I'm sure, because you think about it,
Mhm.
and it's part of what you're doing.
Mhm.
So, how would you think about the benefits of our area as far as locating your colleagues in a business here?
Mhm. Why here?
Yeah,
Why
why
here?
here? I think we'd all like to hear that,
Yeah.
and maybe we ought to hear a couple of why nots too. But
well,
go ahead.
well, there's both. And
Sure.
There really is both, and we've got,
The fact that it's still frozen out there isn't one of them.
I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a big fan of winter, as those who know me know. So, the number one thing we have to offer is talent. We have people that are willing to work and able to work, and we have the educational assets.
The educational system you just talked
That's
about.
just outstanding,
That is
and I think
impressive.
is a very, very critical thing. Secondly, we are super blessed and in some ways lucky where we're located. We in both the natural amenities around here and the beauty of this area but also, quite honestly, the remoteness of this area. And you can, in economic development field, you can see remoteness as a problem, or you can see it as a heck of an opportunity.
Right.
And
You can see us having the
That's right.
cleanest air and water in North America.
Absolutely, and also, you know, if you can't, we're 2.5 hours away from any other major city, if you think about it. And so, in that sense, there's regional, if you look at economically nationwide, regional centers are growing, small communities are not, and struggling.
And that showed in the demographics on your webpage.
That's right.
I was surprised about that.
That's right.
But the outlying communities that we talk about are actually, and counties are shrinking.
Yes.
While Bemidji and Beltrami are growing.
That's right. And in fact, if you look at the state of Minnesota, the map of the state of Minnesota, if you go Rochester to Bemidji, and the corridor that runs through Minneapolis, St. Paul, up through St. Cloud, and then up to Bemidji, Brainerd, and Bemidji, that's the area that's growing. The rest of the state does not. And including the Duluth and the Range, and then to the west.
Is that, what would be driving that? Is that some kind of a transportation arm?
No, I think they call what the state demographer likes to call the Lakes and Plains corridor. And so it's both.
It's the natural beauty.
It is very much the natural beauty, plus, of course, the economic driver of the Twin City area, the Rochester.
Sure, they're
area.
right in the middle.
Absolutely.
They're right in the middle.
That's
And
right.
we're at the other end.
We're at the other end.
We're at the other end.
That's right.
Go on, this is good. What else have we got going for us?
Well, we have, I believe we have the best telecom network of any regional center in the state, including the Twin Cities. We have 3 major telecommunications provider. Paul Bunyan Telephone, our communications, has set us on the map. In fact, we had fiber and internet access that many regions didn't have well before anybody else. And so I think that I'll have companies up here, most recent being Ameripride, who were amazed by the telecommunications infrastructure we have in this region.
Ameripride.
Yes.
Let's, you mentioned them, let's talk about them briefly,
Sure.
just to give us all kind of a positive example of how it works.
Yeah. In fact, it's a good story because it's a lessons learned type of story, which allows us to say, well, let's do the anatomy of a success, if you will.
Good.
Ameripride is a company out of the Twin Cities, headquartered out of Minnetonka, and they do. You think of them, you think of the rugs and the uniforms and things like that they provide. And as a corporate structure, they decided to centralize their accounting functions, their accounts receivable and accounts payable and collections,
Sure.
that type of thing. And we're looking for a location to do that. And they were looking at Winnipeg. They were looking at Fargo. They were looking at Grand Forks. They were looking at, I believe, St. Cloud and Bemidji. And they kind of did Bemidji in passing, simply because the person who thought of the idea of centralizing these functions and kind of laid out the strategy was from Bemidji. And so they're kind of placating her, if you will, to come up. And they came up, and they were one of the companies that clearly said, this place surprises us a little. And not just by the natural beauty and the amenities we have, but the demographics. The ability to, they were expecting a fairly small, fairly remote area, and found out that we're a pretty darn thriving regional center with a lot of amenities.
And of course, they could be pretty much anywhere
That's
now
right.
in this electronic age.
Absolutely,
right?
they could have
Because
been.
you can work on
Yep.
accounts and
Yep.
send the data instantly
Yep.
to anywhere.
And I'll tell you, the things that matter to them aren't things you'd have normally thought of. First off, do you have the telecommunications infrastructure to allow all their plants in North America to connect here? And that was clear and key. And Paul Bunyan Communications was a major driver in that and bringing them to the community. Secondly, we need talent, and they found out that the accounting program at BSU is one of the best in the state. And they could get the graduates they needed from that program to go to work for them. They were very excited about that. They were amazed by the quality of life up here. And they knew they could attract the talent in this area that they needed to.
Great
And
story.
keep them. So,
Great story.
so all of those things, if you look at historically in economic development, wouldn't be things that would have been primary functions of an economic development organization. They are now, because it's the things that matter to companies.
Yeah, that's a great story. We just need to do as much as we can, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm in my mind is that little thing about somebody knew Bemidji. You know, because like I said, you've got a competitor in every city in North America, and all of them are trying to inform, broadcast, promote, you know, and I have no idea how you target them. I'd love to talk about that another day, and briefly, but you know how you target them, and but you know that it's that word of mouth thing is so important.
It is, you know, and you've hit on a big one, Lou, which is the connection to community beforehand. And you know, we love this area. You love this area, I do, and
yes, that's true.
But to many folks, it's still an acquired taste in northern Minnesota a little bit, and so it is not as though that everybody's going to want to live here just because we love it and be here and run their business here. I did challenge our board and ask the question, tell me a major company in northern Minnesota that didn't have a connection to their community before they started.
Yeah, you see, I've always heard this in things like technology parks and industrial parks, that the number one is word of mouth.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm busy problem solving like an old marketer. Let's take that for another day, because there's so many more valuable things that we need to talk about. But first, let's have a little break here. Thanks for joining us, spending your evening with us. I'm Lou Crenshaw. We're here thanks to Upstream TV with Inside Bemidji, where we showcase people and organizations who are working to make our community an even better place. And I'm talking with Dave Hengel, Executive Director of Greater Bemidji, the organization that's leading the economic development here in our community. We're having a great conversation, and we're really just getting into some of the stuff that is really immediate, like Dave's initiative on the Minnesota Innovation Institute.
Sure.
So I want to get to that, but first let's talk about, that was a great story about attracting
Ameripride.
Ameripride.
Sure.
Ameripride.
You got it.
And you mentioned to me something that's quite unusual and surprising, and that's the clinic in Bagley. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
How does that work as far as your activities
Yeah,
go?
but I think people, that's an indicator of sometimes you do projects that aren't traditional, that are right for the area. And we were approached by Sanford Health to consider building for them a clinic in Bagley, a community 20 miles to our west, small town. And you might initially think, why in the heck would you build a clinic in Bagley, and why is that important?
People need one.
And in this case, people did need one.
This is an international show. We go to Bagley.
There you go. Hi, folks in Bagley. In any case, it's an important thing. We're a regional organization.
Sure, as you said.
Our economy is regional, and the community of Bagley, healthcare is critical. And needed. And without this type of investment, it's very difficult to maintain your health care when you're within 20, 25 miles of a major regional center or major health center like Sanford.
Sure.
And so
this is a clinic where you need immediate attention.
Immediate attention.
You're not going to come down to and get to the hospital in time or something.
And then, the expanded services.
Minor, it would just get.
But in this case, they'll get expanded services of physical therapy, occupational therapy. They'll have an optical.
A big clinic.
It is going to be what they call, what Sanford likes to call a super clinic.
Okay.
The reason that it's equally important for us is, first off, it is important to the community.
Yeah, okay.
And the city council made that clear. The second thing is Team Industries is there, and Team Industries is a major regional company that we spend quite a bit of time with. And I asked Team, is this important to you? And they said not only is it important to us, they made a major donation towards the construction.
Okay.
And so when that type of, sometimes you got to get outside the traditional economic development realm to spur economy and meet community needs. And this is one of the examples of why we did that.
No, I think it's a great example. I guess I'd ask the question, why did they look for the expertise of your organization?
It's interesting. They have a capital improvements plan that has them putting an enormous amount of money.
In Sanford?
Sanford.
Yeah,
Sanford.
They're great guys. They tend to do that.
Yeah, they're a big company and
They
a great
impress
company.
me, yeah.
I'll tell you what they've done for our community is incredible.
Absolutely.
And what they will do for our community is even more incredible. And they wanted to make sure that they could even spend more money, if you will, by having operating lease as opposed to owning the facility in Bagley. So this allows them to continue to invest more in other areas while also getting a clinic in Bagley that they dearly
Okay,
needed.
so they don't have to pony up for the
That's right.
facility. That's
That's
great. So then they can use what their expertise is, which is
Absolutely.
of course the content.
That's right.
Who's going to own the building?
I'm going to own the building.
All right,
Yep.
all right. So this will be, and you'll lease it?
I'll lease it to them and likely for them to purchase it after 10 years.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting business model.
It is an interesting, it's
Kind of unexpected.
unexpected, didn't expect it to come, but you know, like I said, sometimes for the right project and for the community and for major companies and customers, you do what you gotta do.
Good story.
Yeah.
How about, without stirring up controversy, what do you do down at the South Shore? You're involved in the South Shore,
Yeah,
right?
the South Shore. Are you suggesting that the Sanford Center and the South Shore might be controversy?
Not to me. I think it's an asset to our community. I'm glad we have it. I believe it's bringing in much needed revenues to businesses here.
Yeah.
I think the transfer tax is the exact answer. The hospitality tax, because it gets the taxpayers out of the loop. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And that's my opinion on it.
Well, good.
So you want to run me down the street? Go ahead. You heard it here.
Obviously, community members know that I was a major advocate for the Sanford Center, and I would be continued to be today. I also know that that was a project that divided our community, and one
Yes.
that I understand. And you know, when I talked to folks when we disagreed, I understood why they disagreed. It wasn't as though there wasn't good reasons to also disagree. We simply just had, I still continue to believe that was the right thing for this community, and I know what it was. When I bring companies in and they get a different view of what we can be and who we are in the Bemidji area, those are the indirect benefits of the Sanford Center that people will never know.
I think the income formulas they have for people going to their events who
Yes.
stop for lunch, get a cup of coffee
Oh,
and
yes.
a donut, stay in a hotel, get gasoline in their car.
Yeah.
They're generating already, without us having the
Absolutely.
hotels in place.
Absolutely.
They're already generating an extremely good revenue
That's right.
stream for
That's
our
right.
community.
So I was obviously a leader in that, and feel strongly that was the right thing to do and is the right thing for our community. As part of that project, as you know, the city owns the South Shore area, which is about 40 acres of developable land that they have infrastructure for, and it's prepared for development. And they opened it up for development at about the worst time the economy's had in the last 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the timing was very poor. But having said that, I think we're coming out of that, and you're starting to see projects come up. About a year and a half ago, the city asked myself and the HRDC to help them market that property to developers. So I'm the one who reaches out to potential developers, whether it's from our community or from other communities, to say, would you be interested in doing something? So that the proposed hotel development, the Country Inn and Suites, was a project that I brought to town. Trip Snyder and Lee Fontenay. The townhome development that's now proposed to be east of the event center. I call it behind the event center, but at the east of the event center is a project that we're involved in. And so our job is to see how can we drive development there.
When you say development, Dave, how does it all fit together?
Right.
Because we've got now 2, probably 3 hotels coming
Mm-hmm.
in. We got, of course, the event center itself. Now you're talking about some townhouses off to the east.
Yep.
What kind of development do we want? Well, how does it all integrate together?
You know, the city kind of, the vision is for a multi-use, multi-sector type of development where it's walkable, it's lively, it's energetic, it's both has housing involved, but also has retail involved. It is this multi-use, district.
Where would the retail go in? What would it look like?
Well, the hope is that, you know, the event center, between the event center and the new DoubleTree Suites, there's several lots along that stretch.
Okay.
That there would be restaurants and retail
All right.
that locate along there.
Because if
as
it's
well
going to
as
be
housing.
lively, people got to be able
Absolutely.
to get a sandwich and a beer, or
Absolutely.
at least a Coca-Cola,
Absolutely.
and watch the sun go down.
And it will happen. I mean, the key is to get started with development, create additional traffic in the area. When you have
Right,
additional
right,
traffic,
right.
and I don't mean car traffic, I mean people,
Right.
that it creates additional demand for the space. I think the vision that the city put forth initially, which came from the community, was for a district that felt a little bit like Canal Park in Duluth. Canal Park in Duluth is the old warehouse district along the canal that became a walkable place that's
Okay.
vibrant and energetic and
Good.
a very,
Is that the one that's like out?
Yeah,
You go across the little
absolutely.
bridge and
Yep,
then it's
that's
out
the one.
there? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I have been there.
so
Yeah.
that's, I think, for viewers who've been to Canal Park, that's the potential of this site. I called it the once in a generation opportunity to drive the economy, and I really believe that. I think you don't have, 2 miles worth of lake shore in one of the finest urban lakes adjacent to an urban
Right,
downtown, a
right,
vibrant
right,
downtown.
right.
You just don't have that anymore.
Well,
And
I believe it, and I hope the people who, for whatever reason, were against it are beginning to see the
I hope so
benefits.
too, and you know what, they have the right questions, which is, where's the development? How are we gonna continue to pay for the operating expenses? Those are good questions.
Well,
and
again,
we're
I think
working
that
on it.
hospitality taxes, that
Yep.
takes, when they bring in millions and millions and millions of dollars every year, even without the hotels in place which allow them to have conventions, and only have a deficit of $400,000 a year in their operating budget, it's just a matter of cycling it.
Yeah, I think
It's not a problem.
Yeah, well, the argument I made at the
It's
time.
just a problem because the taxpayers are, I mean, the property
Yeah.
taxpayers are paying it, that's the problem.
Well, I agree, I think the users ought to pay it, and that's why the value
And
of the
that's-
construction was the sales tax, because those who are even those who are outside the city limits had a part of paying for the event center, and I think that's right.
So
I'm
I think
personally-
the city administration and the city council are stepping up, they understand this totally, and I believe that we're gonna get to the right place.
I think so too, and quite honestly, sometimes you have major regional assets that don't pay for themselves.
Mhm.
The airport
I
doesn't
don't
pay
think
for
this is
itself.
gonna be one.
The community arena and the curling club don't pay for themselves. I mean, there are investments that our parks don't pay for themselves. Our roads don't pay for themselves. Sometimes you make an investment because it provides such a great return, and the economic impact of the event center can be
It changes-
enormous.
Okay, that was perfectly said to me. I
Okay.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's certainly the economic impact can be incredible.
So, what are you gonna do about this, and I don't even understand enough of where this
Sure.
is. What are you gonna do about the railroad corridor?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Now, that runs north of Lake Irving
Yes.
and across and out toward
Yeah.
Fifth Street, right?
Yeah, I would, it's a unique part of town. It's a part of town that most people don't even think about because it's really difficult to get there. I mean, if you look, it feels like it's the backside or the end of downtown. So it's essentially from the backside of the Union Station and the depot to, the north part of the lake.
Is there any, when you hit the lake, what's there, housing?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
there,
I mean,
well, there's
there's
a
no
little bit-
available lakeshore or anything, part of the railroad corridor?
No, available, it's not city-owned currently, no, but there certainly is lakeshore back there, but it's privately owned. but
It's housing.
There's some housing, there's a little marina back there. There's the folk, I think it's called the folk.
You know,
Club.
it must be hard to get there, because I've never made it down there.
It is a unique area and it kind of, which is kind of neat.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because I think great communities have vibrant districts, and this could very well be a vibrant Renaissance district, if you will.
Yeah.
The difficulty is, of course, in any rail corridor, is that the potential for environmental challenges are there. There's haphazard development right now. There isn't much for infrastructure. The only road to get there at this point is to go over the Irvin Avenue Bridge, because if you take any of the downtown roads from either Minnesota, Beltrami, or what is it, not Bemidji, Minnesota, Beltrami, or America Avenues all end prior to, as you get to
They
the
all
rail
stop
corridor.
where the old tracks were,
Right,
right?
right, and so
right.
that
So the
there's
only way to
really-
get there is go over and then kind of
And then
come back.
That's right, and that's
Okay.
right, and
So
so.
this is a challenge.
It is a challenge. and
What's the
it's-
vision
It's a
for it?
lot, well, that's what we're trying to develop, and the
Okay,
community's gonna be a big
vision.
part of that.
There you go.
We're just got some funding, or gonna get some, hopefully get some funding from the Northwest Foundation to lead this community in deciding what they'd like to see back there.
Good.
Now there's a balance, of course, which is just because we wanna see it doesn't mean it's economically viable. So we've got to balance what can happen economically with what we'd love to see as a community. Certainly, it's going to be mixed use. There's definitely going to be housing involved. There's definitely going to be probably, you know, to be adjacent to a downtown like that.
I was gonna ask you, with the right kind of investment, wouldn't it become an extension of the
Oh,
downtown?
could
I mean,
very
it
well
would
be.
it
Sure
would
could.
just be more downtown.
Absolutely,
If
could
you do
be.
it right.
If we do it right, if that's what the downtown needs and,
Yeah, I see.
and wants, and so, and or could it also drive traffic, if you will, people living in the downtown area, which is vital for downtown.
Yeah, yeah, vibrancy
Absolutely, absolutely.
is big,
And
big
so-
capital V. Vibrancy.
So we're gonna be putting together a task force of community members. Anybody who's interested can just contact my organization to help us think through how do we drive development there? How do
There
we
you are.
How do we move this community forward and redevelopment of really a unique urban corridor? So
So will you be reaching out to the community
Oh,
to
yeah.
try and do surveys?
Yep.
or-
yep, we'll have
All
open
right,
houses.
So think about the railroad corridor.
the railroad corridor.
It's
yeah.
an opportunity to
It
be
is.
part of our city,
It
but
is.
a challenge, like you said, for infrastructure and access and other
You bet.
reasons.
Lots of reasons. Lots of reasons to be a challenge, but still, again, it's about 20 acres of land adjacent to our vibrant downtown. It's
How many acres?
Roughly 20 acres. I
20
think.
acres, that's
Yep.
pretty big.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because our whole historic downtown's probably not much bigger, I'm just
Yeah.
guessing.
Maybe double that, but not a lot more.
Double,
you
okay.
know?
Well, we could talk about some of these things quite a while, Dave, but I really want to talk about the Minnesota Innovation Institute.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier, Dave was just talking with the county government yesterday on
Was.
this. And so it's a brand new initiative.
It is.
Let's just hear your introduction of what's this all about, and then we'll
Well,
dive into it.
Well, it's an initiative in process and
All right.
in development. How's that? And
Okay.
you're a development guy, but it started when I had several companies in the area, Potlatch and North Central Door and Team Industries and Low Valley Industries and others came together and they're having a conversation about their common problems and challenges, but also opportunities. And this Minnesota Innovation Institute is, in a sense, a response to that.
So the companies came to,
This has been 100% private-led, private-driven. This isn't where I came with a vision and tried to sell it to companies. Companies came to me and said, we have both these opportunities and challenges that we can address together.
Beautiful.
That will also position us as a regional center to really make a difference. And so the Innovation Institute is really a combination of two key things. One is an attack on what I would call the skills gap. And that is an issue, we've talked about talent already tonight, but the issue of the skills gap is very significant and very real here. We just had a job fair at the event center this last week. We had almost 40 companies there looking for people and about 225 job seekers walking through trying to find jobs. There's a disconnect. We have the highest unemployment rate of any regional center in Minnesota. But at the same time, I hear from companies constantly saying, I need people and the right people.
and
There's
so
a-
this is what you call the skill gap.
That's what I would call the skill gap. And the Institute and the Training Development Center part of the Institute is an attempt to meet the needs, skill needs of these companies, not just these companies, but all companies, particularly in the area of speed and rapid skills, but also flexibility, because the economy changes constantly. Industry changes constantly, technology is changing constantly. So a responsiveness that is very difficult for institutions to, for example, the U of M or the Minsky institutions, to respond as rapidly as these companies need them to respond. And that is not, by the way, a shot at the Minsky institutions at all. I think our university, our tech college do an exceptional job trying to develop the skills that our economy needs. But in this case, these are rapid skills and responsiveness is difficult.
I need a little more around
Sure.
that, so they probably do too. Skills and responsiveness.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? What I heard where I got lost was, okay, there's these companies want to hire people.
They do.
40, how many showed up?
40 companies. Just
40
short of-
companies
yeah.
showed up, but they're telling you that they can't find employees with the skills they need.
Right. The two areas that the Innovations Institute are going to start in, one is in an area called precision machining, which it's called CNC machining. which is very important to Team Industries, but also for several other companies in our area. So machinists.
Yeah, yeah.
You're a very traditional
What's it have to do with
machinist.
speed and flexibility?
Because
in
you,
your mind?
in the case of becoming a machinist, the skills you need, the training center, because of utilizing the new technology and the simulation-based technology that is now available today, can train in a much more rapid fashion than a traditional classroom model or a traditional MINSCU higher ed
So
model.
you're, in your mind, speed is how quickly you can train a person. So if
Absolutely.
they can take a 3 months
Absolutely.
course where the computer helps them learn so fast,
Right.
rather than the traditional 1 year.
That's right.
That's what you're talking about.
Right, and what that allows is that it doesn't preclude them from being a NTC student or a BSU student. In fact, it encourages them, because what the idea is that they can then take these training modules that will allow stackable credentials that will lead to credits. Credits can lead to 2-year degrees, and 2-year degrees can lead to college degrees if they choose to continue to stack these credits.
But the emphasis is on the first step,
Yeah, first step.
which is some kind of a marketable
Yep,
skill
that's right. And
for the individual.
And the other unique part of the training is we're moving the placement part of the job process to the beginning before the training as opposed to after. And what that means is that for a job seeker, you will be hired by this company prior to starting training.
So now, instead of going to school for 2 years
Right.
and learning something that you can then go out and look for a job, you
That's right.
get, it's totally
I
backwards.
hope to find a job.
Hope to find a job.
That's right.
Now you got the job,
That's right.
and then how does it work? You and your employer decide
That's right. You're going to
what you need in the way of skill?
and you have to go through the assessment process. You get hired, and then you begin the training based. You've been assessed as to what your skill needs are in addition. But they're hired in advance. They'll be paid during training, and they'll be guaranteed a job at the end of the successful completion of training. And so it's a wonderful thing for folks who are particularly long-term job seekers, who are just struggling to feel like they have the hope of even finding a job, because they're not being told, well, go find these skills and just maybe you'll be more marketable as an employee, but rather, we'll hire you, and then
You
we'll
got a
follow
job,
you
and now
along.
we'll train you. Well, that's great,
That's right.
because, if you've been out of work for a while,
Yes,
the idea of going and ponying up for a 2-year
Oh, yeah.
training is probably very difficult.
very difficult, or even, quite honestly, the idea of being paid during training is significant. To go without any kind of pay whatsoever for a month. I
Sure.
mean, not many folks, some folks certainly can't do that.
So let me understand then, not only do they got a job, but they're going to be paid during their training?
That's right, they get a training wage. Now, of course, there's a
That's
bump
wonderful.
upon completion. So we've had one pilot project so we've done one training session already. It was for Team Industries, and the folks that went through the training are all employed with Team right now.
So Team Industry said, okay, we'll be in your pilot, we've got this many positions.
Yep.
Who did the training?
The Idea Circle did the training, and the Idea Circle is a for-profit company in the Bemidji area that provides training services and organizational psych services, strategic planning, that type of thing for companies, and they were the training provider in partnership with Northwest Tech College. and
Yeah, I
BSU.
was gonna, that's why I guess I asked, well, good for Idea Circle being able to move
You
that
bet.
fast. Because I saw you had John Senko.
Yes.
John was here once talking about Northwest Technical College.
Mhm.
I would imagine John's gonna have to really reorder a lot of what he does to create this, as you said, building the modules.
That's right. He calls it reverse engineering, and obviously I'm not an educator and don't understand it entirely, but the idea is how do you identify what they're learning and capture that into what he calls credit hours and credits, which lead to degrees. And so I'm not an expert in that, but he sees that as huge potential, and the center to feed in, to be a feeder into their programs at NTC and also the programs at BSU.
Well, I frankly have never heard of anything like it. And the idea that you get a job, you get paid to go to get trained, you get your training paid for, and you get paid while you're
That's
being
right.
trained.
Yeah.
It's what a wonderful thing for
It is.
people trying to find a job.
It's wonderful. It's been very difficult. It's been a hard partnership. And it's not been done anywhere else that I'm aware of, and that's why it's hard. But
Yeah.
it's the right thing.
Well,
It's the right thing for these job seekers. It's the right thing for the companies.
good for you and John, because when John was here, he was talking about exactly this problem
Right.
that we all see of when we talk about our children going away to work somewhere because they don't have a job.
Yep.
And we talk about our local businesses who want to grow, can't find the
That's right.
skills. And how do you break this vicious cycle
That's right.
of balancing? You know, the students don't want to go out and work for 2 years and then have to go
That's right.
run around the country
Yeah.
looking for a job either.
It certainly has changed.
So how do you balance the training and the employees with the jobs
Yep.
and the future and make it all happen?
It is the issue of the day. I mean,
Well,
you
think
heard
it's
the
great
president.
that you guys are seriously stepping
Yeah,
up to it.
trying to. And you know, it's non-traditional for our organization to get involved in something like this, but nothing could be more important. So that's one part of it. The other part is to create in the Bemidji area what I call an entrepreneurial accelerator or incubator, where a person who's looking to get in business or expand their business has space available to them to at a startup rate that allows them to succeed. And then also has the resources from economic development to financial assistance to business planning at their fingertips. One of the unique parts of that, by the way, is we're hoping to build in part of that what I would call a retirement wing that many corporations have, where early retirees, CEOs, perhaps a Luke Renshaw could have a space to come and be available to mentor new entrepreneurs coming into to their own.
I spent about 2.5 years of my life with a whole family of startup businesses.
That's what I need.
And what they did is they brought me in from my business experience to coach these, like, you know, business managers. And they were, but they were, you know, peanut business managers. But we had a lot of fun, and there are businesses that we tried to get 2 out of 5 businesses to $10 million in 2 years. And then some of them, when I lost track of them, were 30, 50, $60 million businesses. Now, we had a lot of failures. But anyway, I might take you up on that. It's some of the most fun I ever had in my life.
Well, I'll tell you, the Bemidji area is blessed with a lot of retired CEOs.
I bet it is.
It
There's
is.
a lot. Well, we live here because we love it. But how would this work? Now, I mean, I understand what you're involved with, and having people to advise them, coach them, provide them some financial help them write a business plan, where's your market, you know, all of that. How would it work? What's your vision? This is very interesting.
Well, I think that the hope is that we'd actually locate some of those services right in the center.
In the center.
Minnesota Innovation Institute.
So in other words, this Innovation Institute would have, if you will, 2 roles.
That's right.
So it would have the training role,
Right.
and now it would have this fledgling startup entrepreneur.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
role.
right. And so the resources, whether it's myself, perhaps the Workforce Center, Minnesota Workforce Center folks, to the Idea Circle people, maybe even BSU has an outreach center there or something like that. We would surround these companies with that available, those available resources.
So we'd leverage this talent
Absolutely.
and knowledge we have.
That's right.
And the skills
And it'll be right at their fingertips.
Yeah.
One of the other parts to that center, by the way, is that, and it's been a conversation between us and Team Industries, Sanford Health, the ones who are particularly trying to recruit people to town, whether it's people or companies or customers, they want to create what they call a recruitment suite, which would be a very high-tech boardroom and lounge area that is a place that you can entertain, if you will. CEOs and inform people.
But you'd have the right kind of atmosphere.
That's right, the best of the Bemidji area.
Nothing like that.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. A place
So
where
that's-
you tell your story before you go out.
That's
and,
exactly right.
show them
That's
some
right.
of our
Yep.
features and benefits.
That's right, and so we're running with that project. It's a very hard project to get done.
And when
but
you said-
I'm real
Sorry.
thankful for the county board support. They were,
Sounds
they're
like
very
you got
positive.
a real positive
You
feedback.
bet, and I'm thankful for their leadership on that and the
Even
leadership
our
on my board.
favorite local curmudgeon, Jim
Oh,
Lukacek.
jeez.
I love Jim. He even stepped out to talk about what a good idea
Jim,
it was.
yeah, Jim's on my board, you know,
Oh,
and
is he?
he
Okay.
is on my board, and Jim's got the voice of the small business on my board, and I think it's an important voice that I need
Well, I
to
think it's
continue
an
to hear.
important voice.
You bet.
And you know, he knows a lot about business himself, so that's a good thing.
You bet. You bet.
Well, you're doing a lot of stuff, and I wish you luck on this Minnesota Innovation Institute. It sounds like a great idea. I know you've already got some funding, it says.
We do. We got the
And,
Nielsen Foundation supported $200,000 towards the project. We have applications into the Blandon and Otto Bremer Foundations. BSU's made a commitment of space, equipment, and then also some funding as well. So it's certainly coming together.
I know you want to buy a facility for it.
Mhm.
Can it go ahead even if that part of it doesn't add
Sure.
up?
Yeah, I think we're
How would it
currently,
look then?
we're currently
I mean,
looking
I
at.
understand totally why you want a facility, and that
Yeah.
would make it really good.
Yeah, and I'm mixed about whether I absolutely need to own it, but there's lots of reasons, and it's a long conversation about why to own versus not to own, but we have I think we have a building identified that is probably a perfect fit, and are having conversations with the building owner that would have a dual track. One is we own the building and do the work, or they continue to own the building and simply make lease rates to these companies. So I'm not exactly sure what direction it will go. I have, every time I think I know which way it's going, it changes on me, so I'm not gonna make a prediction, but it sure seems like the Nielsen Foundation and the county would like us to own the building.
Sounds exciting, sounds like a lot of innovation in itself, and just what we need, so good luck with that.
Well, thank you.
We could talk all night, Dave, as you can see, because I love this subject, and I think it's one of the most important things going on to support our, but I'm going to sign off here. I'm Lou Crenshaw, and thanks for joining us tonight. We try to do this show every Wednesday night at 6:30. We call it Inside Bemidji, and we showcase people and organizations that are working to make our city an even better place. Tonight we've had a wonderful conversation with Dave Hengel, who's the Executive Director of Greater Bemidji, leading our economic development. It has been a pleasure, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Lou.
And
Great to be here.
anything else at all while we have a minute?
Yeah, no, I'd just like to invite community members to participate and get involved. If there are ideas or you want to be engaged or involved in any of the economic development work of the region, we'd love to have you. I've just encouraged Lou to join me and a task force on how do we brand the Bemidji area better, and I think there's opportunities for anybody who wants to be engaged. We need it. We need involvement.
I like that, Dave, and I know you mean it, because time after time tonight you talked about dealing with diversities of opinion
You bet.
and their value. So I know he means it, so let's get involved. Economic development is one of the most important tasks we have.
It is. It is.
Great to hear about it.
Thanks again, Lou. Take
Thanks
care.
again.